Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Marketing Corner.
Hello.
This that is great. We're keeping that.
Yeah.
That is we're at episode 55.
55.
That also feels more monumental than it actually is, but it's pretty good. It's a pretty good
That's
number.
pretty
I
good.
feel good about it.
Not bad.
Today we're going to be talking about something that's related to marketing, but not necessarily just a marketing topic.
Yes.
And before starting, I want to caveat and say we try to be as constructive as possible in whatever this is. But sometimes we also have topics that are super sensitive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Today, we're going to be talking about leadership.
Yes.
Leadership, and we actually frame it this way today, just for you guys to say, sometimes you get in a situation where you have a bad leader or you're exposed to bad leadership. If it hasn't happened to you already, bless you, but it will happen at some day in your career.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a God-given gift.
Yep.
It is what it is. But what do you do when you're in that situation?
Yep.
And specifically, this episode is going to focus on what do you do when you can't just leave?
Yep.
For some reason, you can't just leave. Maybe you're tied up. Just bought a house. You're whatever. You're stuck. The economy is shit. You can't just leave. Because it's the easy option. Hey, just leave.
Yeah.
But if you can't, then what do you do? So that's what we're talking about today.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to kick it off, let's... have you ever had someone you felt like was a bad leader in your career, Jen?
Yes, definitely.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think most people have. And
Yes.
these episodes are not directed at one person.
No.
I would consider myself lucky if it was just one person.
We're not going to mention any of the bad ones here today at all by name, so don't worry. But we might mention some of the good ones.
Yeah. We'll mention some of the good ones. And I think one of the things maybe to start with is to kind of highlight the characteristics of what we consider a bad leader,
Yeah.
toxic leader, and things like that. Because maybe people need help identifying it. I don't know.
Yeah.
If they make you feel like shit every day, then that's probably a sign.
It's usually easy to identify, right?
Yeah.
Like, but sometimes you can be stuck in a hole where I remember someone explained it to me the other day. It's like a toxic relationship. So
Yeah.
I've never actually had that, so I can't really shout out to
Camilla.
Both of our wives are called Camilla,
Both
which
the
is like
Camillas. Shout out.
to those, the ones that actually keep everything running.
Yeah.
Anyways, but I never actually experienced a toxic. But somebody explained it to me like the same way, where it's like, then you get in a violent relationship or something. You get hit, and like you get abused or something, and you're like, oh, you're down in the gritter, and then like they do something nice, and like, yeah, maybe it's all right, maybe it's
Yeah.
fine, but it's actually that's not
fine, yeah.
that's not how it's supposed to be. And often, like I feel like a lot of the people I've mentored and talked to and stuff have been stuck in this kind of feel where like then they experience something super shitty.
Yeah.
Where it's like, and I'm like, that's not okay, man.
Yeah.
Like that's not. Yeah, but then that person did the other thing the other day, and I'm like, yeah, but they still did the other thing.
Yeah.
They still did that really shitty thing.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I had someone in a previous role.
Yeah.
They were not reporting directly to me. They were reporting to someone else, but I had asked them for help with something.
Yeah.
And they gave me the thing. It was great. And I just said, hey, I messaged them. I said, I just want to let you know. Thank you. That was really helpful. And I really appreciate that you got that to me so fast.
Yeah.
And he kind of got like a thumbs up emoji. And he came up to me the next day and he's like, I just want to check, were you making fun of me? And I was like, what? He's like, I just wasn't sure if you were being sarcastic because no one's ever really told me I've done a good job before. So to hear you say that, I just want to make sure you're not making fun of me. And I was like, oh my God, you poor child. Like, my heart really broke for him because I'm like, no, you did a good job. And I just wanted to say, good job.
Exactly.
So I think things like that, I think are really actually more common. Like you're probably not going to get the boss who screams at you or throws chairs, although I have had that happen where I had a chair thrown. I was not the thrower. I was the target.
That's pretty drastic, right?
Yeah,
like
that was pretty excessive. Because we didn't agree over sales and marketing alignment issues.
Ouch.
So I had a chair thrown in my general direction.
Okay.
But I think, like dangerous, toxic behaviors that are super obvious, but there's also some that aren't. And I think never getting complimented, never being allowed to take credit for things. I've had when I kind of started my career and I took credit for something that was mine. It was like, well, we're a team. You didn't do that on your own. And you're like, but sometimes I can say I did a good job, you know? And so I think there's kind of really obvious things, and I think there's some subtle things. And
so what? Some of the obvious ones. So for instance, this whole credit taking thing.
yeah,
Like whenever a person as leader takes credit for something that was a team effort or another individual and takes it under there. It's something I've seen a bunch of cases. Also,
happens a lot.
I've consulted a bunch of companies where I've seen that happen. And that's for me, that's always a red flag. That's always a trait of a bad leader.
yeah,
Like for the good, like, and then you can just compare it to the good leaders I've always seen. They always try to never almost get credit.
Never take the credit.
Like they're almost, whenever you try to give them credit, yeah, but it was actually not mine. It was like here. Actually, it was not here, but so thank you to the team. And it's like this is a good trait, right?
Yeah.
So whenever you see someone who tries to take credit for everything that's happening, that's usually a red flag.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's something to look out for 100%, because if they're taking credit for your work and they're not recognizing your contribution, like verbally, then they're probably not recognizing it in their own brain either. So as a marketer, especially in a role maybe that doesn't necessarily have like hit this MRR target, like a sales job. You have a target in sales, you hit it or you don't. Sometimes in marketing, it's a little bit more, you have to put some trust in, okay, maybe I don't show the MRR, but I'm still doing stuff to help, it's in a job that's not black and white.
Yeah.
You really need your boss to trust you and to support you and to recognize your efforts, even if they can't point to it on a graph and say that was you.
And I think that, so keeping it in line with marketing, I think that's a really good point too. Because one of the things, marketing, even though we always talk about being measurable, being super like hardcore, marketing is hardcore. But it's not, at the end of the day, we're also doing a lot of things that are like not measurable. Right, so we're doing marketing, man. Like we're supposed to be the ones that tell the world about the company, and sometimes we have to do some stuff that's not really normal, right?
Yeah.
We have to go out. You have to be bold. So whenever you have a leader who limits your creativity or your boldness, that's also for me a red flag, especially in marketing leadership, because like you want the people who take risks.
Yes.
Right. So whenever somebody I've been in situations before where it's like whenever I took a risk that failed. Like, so let's say you take a risk, 9 out of 10 times it works out.
Yep.
The 1 out of 10 times it doesn't work out. Does that mean you shouldn't have done it? No, you still should have done it because like the probability wise, it was very likely to succeed. Now I'm simplifying it a little bit. But whenever you find a leader that then punishes you or like somehow punishes you for that 1 out of 10 times or whatever that ratio is, then that's a sign for me of a bad leader, because that it was still the right decision to do it. Yeah. It just ended up being a bad outcome.
And if you apply a growth mindset, which is what I think is super important, there's no failures.
Exactly.
It's only
if
learnings. I run a campaign, and like I talked about in a previous episode, we did a pricing page launch.
Yeah.
And in 3 days, we're like, this was a mistake. But I'm not like, God damn it, guys, we shouldn't have done this. And I told you we shouldn't have done this. We're going to bring it up in a review. It was like, we learned a shit ton from that. And so this is going to help influence our next iteration.
Exactly.
So I think, and I have had bosses who are like, like you said, 10 times it succeeded, 1 time it didn't. And I get dragged over to coals for the 1 time, but I don't get recognized for the 10. Yeah. And that is definitely a red flag. Yeah. Maybe we should do like a red flag counter. 3 out of 5 flags.
And let's take a good example here. So here's a good example of one side of the spectrum and the other. So here I can mention by name. So Glenn, my advisor here at Sparkforce, used to be my boss at Templify. And if you ever saw the fuck up nights we did here in Copenhagen, this was actually one of my examples of good leadership. Because like I'd created a campaign before I went on holiday.
I remember this.
The link was bad. Long story short, the link was bad, so we wasted 50,000 on something that didn't drive anything. Like you went to a 404 page, super bad, right? And I was pretty new in the job, so I was shaking. Like I was like really nervous. I was pretty green back then, right? And Glenn was just like, you gotta break some eggs to make an omelet. The end. So he was like, the end, moving on. You did it, like all your intentions were good. Your execution failed the last 5%. Shit happens.
Yep.
We're moving on. Like, it is what it is.
And that's the approach that you're supposed to have, because if people are scared to take risks, you're never going to grow.
Exactly.
You're never going to try new things.
So exactly. And after that, it was not like, yes, I learned my lesson. Don't launch on a Friday before you go on a weekend. Check your URLs, check all that stuff. But at the same time, and you nailed it when you just said it right there. It's just like, it learned me to not be afraid of failure. Yeah. And that was the most important lesson you can ever give to someone on your team. And comparably, I've been in situations before where we made a spelling mistake on a social post, which is comparably peanuts. You know, like nothing. Absolutely. Who gives a flying fuck? No hard feelings. But like,
especially now that you can edit your LinkedIn post.
You can even edit it. Nobody really. So 54. But that was blown out of proportion that suddenly after that was like a small mistake like that. at the company I was at that point, we suddenly had to create a process for how to. So suddenly you needed multiple stakeholders reviewing the social post before they went out because of spelling mistakes. And that to me, when that happened, that did exactly the opposite, right? We told me, okay, we're scared to do things fast. We're scared to move fast because we don't want to make mistakes.
Yep.
And if we don't want to make mistakes, we can't learn fast enough and we can't move fast enough.
So just keep doing the same thing over and over and over
Yeah,
again.
so let's keep doing the same thing we always do, and let's have 4 people reviewing a social post.
Yeah.
This is speaking, but going back to track here, but identifying like when your leader doesn't allow you failure, that's definitely a red flag in my book.
Yeah. No, like we could put a line under that one because I think we've nailed it, but absolutely. And I think this isn't really a trait, but something that sprung in my head from our conversation is also I think this is one of the reasons that it's not necessarily a great idea for marketing to report to a CRO.
Yeah.
Because that comes into measurability, make money. They don't realize that there's branding and there's other things that you do that helps make that money faster, helps those deals close. So I think when it comes to looking for a leader, I remember I interviewed for a job ages ago where the CRO had a marketing background. So she was very, very well versed in what it takes to get revenue. That is awesome. But I've also worked for CROs who are like, nope.
Yeah.
If you're not making money, stop doing it. Example, being told, we don't make any money off of LinkedIn ads, stop LinkedIn ads.
Wow.
And that is a really bad idea.
That's
But
a
when
bad
you
sign.
look at it from a black and white perspective, yeah, maybe it could look like it makes sense.
Yeah.
Which leads me to a point that I completely just forgot. I had something in my head, but I lost it.
Okay, I'll grab it
You
from
go.
here.
You
Because
take
I
it
was
off.
thinking, so one of the things that you catch it right, like you gotta make sure you like, it depends on who you're reporting to, right? Like, if you're reporting to someone who's risk averse, that's not a good fit for marketing in general,
No.
and it's not necessarily a critique of that person. Like typically lawyers are very risk averse. Finance super risk averse, right? So that's why if you're placed under those type of people, nothing against them, but they will never be good marketing leaders most likely because they're risk averse, and that's just not something that goes well with marketing.
Yeah.
Like in marketing, you can't afford to be risk averse.
Yeah, very true.
One thing I want to add, I want also like I think we're gonna move soon to what you can do about these things, but or at least try to. But one of the things I've also found to be a big red flag for me in identifying a bad leader is when you are the one who has to set the direction completely,
Yep.
and the direction is set completely, but it's controlled emotionally. So what I mean with that is I've had leaders in the past where the focus would change every single week. Like you would come into the office on Monday and be like, yeah, we're doing the thing we planned to do last week. And then the leader would come and say, no, we're changing. We're doing this other thing. And we're doing it to be agile, to be whatever, fast moving, disrupting an industry, blah, 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 bullshit, right? Those leaders are also, especially young in your career, you don't know it. I remember specifically back then, I didn't know that this was a bad trait.
How it is.
It just felt like, wow, we're not really,
We're agile.
We're agile. We're changing. We're
agile.
super flexible. No, you're just not getting shit done because you keep changing what you want to do.
Because no one's making a decision.
Yeah, exactly. So this undecisiveness, and that's
Yeah.
actually a really good word here, right? That's really a big flag for me too.
Yeah.
So, because a leader, for me, sometimes it's actually better to have a leader who just says, "Hey, Casper, this is how we're gonna do it. Like we're gonna do it this way." And then sometimes, yeah, okay, that sucks. I feel bad decision, but it's better to have that decision happen than to not have a decision.
Exactly. Yeah. I
Even though
agree.
you disagree with it.
And that's one of the things I try to do, at least with my team, is one, I trust them.
Yeah.
So they say, what do we do? And I'm like, option A, option B. What are the pros and cons of both? And then I'll be like, we're going with option B. And if it's the wrong case, at least I did everything I could to make the right decision.
Your decision-making process was at least somewhat fulfilling.
Yeah, and
And
that's a thing that I'm very surprised at sometimes with leaders, where they can just kind of swoop in, make wide sweeping changes without consulting people, and you're kind of like,
Whoa, what
and-
happened here?
yeah, and it can be, I think sometimes in organizations, even in startups where it's small and agile, I'm sometimes amazed at how many decisions come top down without consulting the boots on the ground.
Yeah.
So now we're going to do this, and it's like, but that's not going to work because of XYZ. I don't care, we're doing it now. Which leads me to the point I forgot.
Yeah, awesome.
And maybe this moves us on to the next part that we want
Yeah.
to talk about, what to do with it. Because this is something that comes up a lot. And even in my level as a VP, you have to sometimes make that call. And I know people on my team have to make that call. But what do you do in a situation where maybe you're being told to do something by your manager, boss, C-level, whoever, that you know is a very bad idea?
Yeah.
So, and the reason I ask this is because there's times in my career where I've fought that and fought and fought and fought, and eventually you're tired, you're frustrated, you're the argumentative one.
Yeah.
You're the problem. Even though you're trying to do what's best for the company, you're not falling in line, you're not following orders because you know, not think, but know
Yeah.
that this is a bad call.
Yeah.
So, for example, in the LinkedIn ads, if I kept my LinkedIn ads running and I use that money and I
you
get
used
caught,
audience network.
and I use audience network, even I would never do that, Casper. Don't be ridiculous. How dare you?
Yeah, exactly.
But and then there's also been parts of my career where I'm like, okay, boss, you're the boss.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do what you say. So I think that's I haven't mastered that yet. I think now, luckily, I'm in a position now where I'm like, if I don't agree with that decision, I can voice that and I can back it up, and I'm usually listened to. But there are many people I think in our career, and this comes up a lot when I mentor people, of like, my boss wants me to do this, and I think this is really dumb. What do I do?
Yeah. I think that's a great one, and that ties us into the next part,
Yeah.
which is like, how do we? What are the things you can do to solve or at least combat some of these things? Like, truth be told, as we said in the beginning of the episode, yeah, sometimes maybe the right decision is to leave.
Just to
like
leave,
most of a lot of the times and these days, it is to leave. Like, it's not an unhealthy sign to leave, but if you can't,
Yeah.
then what do you do? So let's take the example you just brought up here. I've had to, I call it eat a lot of camels.
That's a
Or-
Danish thing, huh?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
a
we
Danish.
say eat shit.
Eat shit. Yeah, eat shit is probably more
You
correct.
gotta eat a lot of shit.
Well, sometimes, but kiss frogs is not really kiss a lot of frogs to find prince. Not really the right saying here. But in Danish, we call it eat a lot, like swallow some camels.
Swallow some camels.
Yeah.
Got it.
Anyways, the point is where it's like when you do this, so my experience tells me that find the battles that matter.
Yeah.
Find the ones that really matter. I remember specifically working for a company, and we had designed a new email signature because we rebranded, had new color. And some of the management were a little bit old school, so they really did not like this color on the email signature.
Was
They
it
had-
purple?
Maybe. I'm not gonna. Maybe something to do with purple, but
It's just because you brought this up, I think, in a previous episode. So
yeah,
it's
it was
that.
potentially purple. Anyways, they didn't like it, and that's fair. Like you can
Not
have
everyone
opinions
likes
about it.
purple.
No, not everyone likes purple. And I remember initially I was fighting back. It's like, hey guys, this is our brand color. This is what we're gonna do now. And it was like lasting for 2 weeks. Every like almost every day, it wouldn't be like they accepted it, but it will always be like a small poke and be like, hey, I think it's time to change the email signature. And then at some point I was like, I actually don't want to fight this anymore.
Yeah.
They want dark blue, so I said, hey designer, can you make it dark blue instead? Like, we used that color somewhere. Let's just use that.
Yeah.
And then they were like, yeah, it's way better. Awesome. Moving on.
Yep.
And I think that's a general something I learned from my leadership experiences. Find the battles that really matter. Did it fucking matter what email signature you have? No fucking way.
No, it
Like
doesn't.
that's not going to
Yeah.
change the business. What our positioning is, like, or our main message.
Yeah.
That one I remember had some arguments, and that one I fought for.
Yeah.
Or the marketing budget, or strategy, general strategy. Those things are the ones that matter. Hires, stuff like that. Email signature, maybe that's
Yeah,
not.
not so
So
much.
sometimes, as a person, take a step back and say, okay, what is this worth fighting for?
Yeah.
Like, is it actually worth fighting for? And of course, some people say, yeah, but it's my name on the line as a marketeer. Yeah, I know, but like, don't worry. I'm not gonna judge you for using a wrong color in your email signature.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna
yeah.
not hire you because you did that.
Yeah.
Like, if you did a Super Bowl ad, like, yes, but that's also a big play, right? That's a
Yeah.
big bet.
That's a risk.
That's a risk,
that's a
right?
risk.
So it's different.
Expensive risk. And I think along those lines too, yes, 100% pick and choose your battles.
Yeah.
No, give a little to get a little. My grandma had a saying: sometimes you got to eat a lot of shit before you can eat steak. It's
Yeah,
that
exactly.
Kind of like, just take it, because eventually the big deals are gonna, or the battle's worth winning.
Yeah.
One of the things I've also taken to doing is getting things in writing, which I know sounds really
Yes,
official,
really
but
good
God
point.
damn it, that has saved my ass so many
Love that.
times. Save your ass, everyone. So one of the things I did, again, I think I've talked about this in a previous episode, but I've worked in a company where they wanted to change color of a button on a CTA. Now, we have already A/B tested, and we know that we had 5% more clicks on this. I think it was green. So we wanted a green. The CEO chimed in and was like, no, I wanted this other color. Maybe purple. Who knows?
We love purple.
We love purple. It's even in our background. you
Yeah,
know?
look at us.
Um,
Marketing core.
But we said, I fought it, and I said,
Yeah.
look, we've tested this. We know that green works better. And I know it sounds really stupid, but 5% increase is a lot if you're trying to make money, right? It can be a deal breaker. And he was really pushing, and of course, he's higher up than me. Hippo, the highest paid person's opinion wins. So I just said, okay, and I put in a Slack message, I just want to be 100% clear that we are okay with making 5% less conversions on this landing page if we change its color. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
And then once I got that yes, I save that shit in my project management software, because then when I get asked why are our conversions down, I can maybe point to this and go, well, I did say that this could happen.
Yeah.
And then you kind of cover your butt, because I think sometimes, especially in marketing, everyone has an opinion. Everyone thinks they know marketing because they had a Facebook account or whatever.
Yeah.
And so when you have data and other people don't necessarily respect the data, sometimes you have to capitulate. You have to say, okay, Hippo, highest paid person's opinion wins, but get it in writing.
Yes, I agree.
As I told you so.
No, I totally agree. And it ties into the next point. It's like, if you sometimes, like, I'm not, like, let's say you get hired in as a VP marketing or head of marketing, or not a CMO in this case, but let's say you get pretty hired up. Sometimes you're tasked with making a marketing plan. And I think my point is, sometimes if you're stuck, and this goes for every part of organization you're in, sometimes, speaking of indecisiveness from a leader, you have to be the one that makes the plan. So you have to make the options easy. If you can't get a decision from your leader, make it as easy as possible for them to make that decision. So you can be the worst toxic leader, but if you put inside of, hey, I made this plan for how we're going to do X, Y, Z. It means we can't do this, this, and this, and means we can't do this, this, and this. Then you at least did everything you could in your possible, with your potential control, to actually influence the decision or influence the leadership in a good direction. That I've had a lot of success with. I've also had failures with it, truth be told, because sometimes, and the same goes for my next point on data, same, because I've shown data where, like, hey guys, this is the data. The data's telling us we need to do this, this, and this. And I'm like, yeah, we don't care. This is not what we want to do. And that's what you just said, right? Like, your case is perfect. Like, yeah, we don't care about the data. We want to do this. Sometimes that happens, right? So have a plan and use the data. That's at least rationally going to take you pretty far. It won't solve every case, and sometimes when you have bad leadership, it won't solve the case, but it will get you closer.
It could get, and I 100%, I believe data is the great equalizer, I usually say, right? Like, even if you have the Hippo, the highest paid person's opinion, you could be the intern, as I was. When I started at Planday, I was the intern, but I had data, and I was like, hey, here's what the data says. And all of a sudden, I'm the voice in the room, and I would be listened to, usually, when I came with data. When I go, hey, excuse me, my gut says, no one gives a shit about your gut. Get out of here, intern. But not saying that that's how they were, but, that's kind of the approach. But if you come with data and you're like, okay, I see what you're saying, but X, Y, Z, 9 times out of 10, if they're a good leader, they'll listen. And if they're a bad leader, then get it in writing.
Yeah, exactly.
But I guess it brings us, as we kind of getting near the end of how do you survive in that kind of environment? Yeah. So pick and choose your battles, get everything in writing. But of course, there has to be, I think the thing that also a lot of people deal with is just general unhappiness and frustration. Yeah. So how do you find joy? How do you find satisfaction in that kind of an environment? And I think there's several ways, but I'm going to kick it over to you first.
Well, I think we already talked a little bit about this, but let's focus on the things you can control. Like, focus on the things that you can actually influence. Like, some of the things you can influence, like the strategic direction for the company that you maybe think is completely wrong or something like that. Yeah, it is what it is. Yeah. You have to write it. Like, and you're writing it down a line you don't like, but it is what it is. I have actually, this is a bit side note, but I've used a lot of networking groups, stuff like that. And I use it a bit like therapy sessions, almost like meeting.
Almost like this is?
Almost like this. This is, for me, this is therapy. Yeah. Right? Like when we're recording, it's therapy. Also, when we're in between episodes, guys, that's all the sweet nuggets is there. Anyways, but point is, that's for me therapy too. So that also helps, because then I can like rant about whatever. It's like, hey, I fucking hate this, blah, 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 blah. And like, whew, it's out. Tomorrow I don't have to do it at work or whatever, right?
I'm your agony aunt.
Yeah, exactly.
My agony uncle.
And you having people you can do that with is a good vent that doesn't make things perfect, right? Like,
and maybe try not to make that your partner.
Yeah.
That's why I find these networking groups where people understand where you're coming from, because your poor partner is probably going to be like, and
they can also be constructive, right? Yeah, like sometimes the networking groups, sometimes the guys go like, why don't you just do this? And like, yeah, you're probably right. Right.
Yeah, because they've been there.
Yeah,
exactly. They've been there before. Yeah. And I will say one of my last parting advice more of a practical advice, and this is something actually I gave one of my mentees, and she used it and she found it really helpful. Is say you want to raise or something like that. A lot of companies aren't in a position to do that right now.
Yeah.
Bad economy, things like that. Sure, that can be really, really frustrating. So maybe instead look at areas that you can take on and changing your title.
That's a good point.
And that's something that I've used as a negotiation tactic. Okay, if you can't meet my salary expectations, then I want to be this, or I want this to be my area of expertise, or I want, or trying to climb the ladder. We've all climbed the ladder in every company. You were an intern, I was an intern. We've all started, and look where we are now.
Yeah.
And we got there probably because we took stuff on and we said, okay, now that I'm doing this, I think this is a better title, or whatever that might be, because then that title is going to open up new doors somewhere else. So it's not just I quit and slam the door and leave. If you want to set a foundation for a next opportunity, maybe if you can't get certain things, try to get that new title, or try to get some new training or something that's going to put you on a path to a better place. So I've had positions where that's happened, and at least I got the training and I got the skills, and then I got the opportunities, and I just used the kind of toxic environment as a launch pad to put me somewhere else. There is always an option.
Yeah.
Even if it's really, really bad. And I've worked in some really bad places. You have as well. Again, I had a fucking chair thrown at me. So, I've been there, but use what you can to make the most to get yourself to the next place.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I agree. And just be careful with emotions, right? I think that's one of my last points is just emotions, but also understand the leader you have. If it's a bad one, but also understand who they are. Try to figure out, are they risk averse? Are they willing to take risks? Do they respond to emotion? Do they respond to
do they
data?
have empathy? I think empathy is a big one.
Empathy is a big one, right? And sometimes, of course, they can have bad traits and stuff, but figure out their levers. 'Cause sometimes you can get through good decisions by pushing on some of the levers, right?
Yeah.
So if you have someone who's really who loves a lot of credit, let's take that as an example as we talked earlier. Well, give them the credit before you force down something bad, before you force down what you really want. Hey man, I'm super glad we did this cool thing. It's all due to you. Can we also do this thing while we're at it? Yeah. Okay, cool. That's actually what I wanted all along, right?
There's playing a game. You have to play the game.
You have to play the game a little bit, right?
Yeah.
I've also, last part before we end, or at least for my sake, find someone internally, if let's say it's a management, so you're talking to a C-level, find another C-level who gets you.
Yeah.
If you can. If you can't, fuck. It's bad.
No.
But if you can find someone who gets you, then sometimes you can utilize them to put it in a room. Because if you prepared all the rational arguments for doing something, you have a whole hey, this is why we should be doing blah 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 blah, boom 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 boom, and say and then you just hey, and then see if, speaking of playing a game, see if you can build a scenario where you end up with that person and your leader in the same room or over coffee, and you discuss it and you point out because then it's a lot harder for the other C-level in this case to just outrule you if they don't have arguments. Because that's typically when you feel bad leadership, is when you're they just outruled you because hey, I want to do it this way. But what? It's not good. No, I want to do it. Okay. But then if there's another C-level champion that stands next to you and gets you or likes you or something, supports you, then it's yeah, but are you listening to what he's saying?
Yeah.
He's actually saying this. Why are we doing that? Yeah, but then that becomes harder.
Yeah.
And you don't want to always, because that could sometimes feel backstabbery to the leader.
Yeah.
So tread carefully. But
That's
I've had success with that stuff.
Where I create a working group. That's a working group. Not all working groups, but that's something that I've done is kind of getting the voices, the allies in the room.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of go, here's what the data says we should do. However, it has been suggested we do something else. And then I think sometimes they see the logic there.
Yeah. How do we get there?
How do you get to that point? But without putting them on the spot, without, going in a room and yelling and screaming and pointing fingers, let's have a meeting. And one of the things I also did a lot of was presentations. Yeah. And I was actually teased a little bit because every time there's a meeting, Jen has some slides, but it's purely to show the data. If I say to you, we get more clicks if we do this, doesn't mean nothing. When I throw it on a graph and I say, here's the clicks on a blue button, here's the clicks on a green button,
it looks,
what do you want to do? I think also visually it helps paint the picture. But you get the idea, guys. You get the idea. Stick through it. Control what you can. Find your allies. Use the data. Back your shit up as much as you can, and if it's not working out, use any opportunity, if they have a training program, whatever they might have, to get you new skills, to get you the hell out without losing revenue or your house or whatever. You know,
Exactly.
I wouldn't recommend people walking out without something. So use the opportunity, use the time to find
And talk about it. Like
and talk about it.
talk about it with the people near you. Talk about it with the champions internally. It's not. I'm not advocating that you rant. I think that can create sometimes like a negative spiral. But find some people you trust and you can talk about these things with.
Yeah.
Like I think.
And you can always talk to us.
And you can always talk to
We're your
us.
friends.
We're here.
We're
If
here
you're
for you.
listening, we already love you.
We
So
love you.
and if we're bad leaders, we wouldn't even know.
Yeah, don't tell us.
Yeah, we don't even know.
Because we're bad leaders. We don't want
Yeah,
to know.
we don't want to know. On that note,
On
thanks
that
for
note,
listening,
thanks for
guys.
listening.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.